Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 86 of Makai-World Reviews. I am, of course, the Tony Makai, Master of Minds and of Men. We are deep into the fan picks month. Well, one fan, that of Sheena Luthor, and I have no Lex Luthor joke today, sadly. We move on a bit from Antrim to something a bit different. Today we look at Bronson. If you want a whole month of your movies, or just a week, head over to my Patreon for a few bucks. I'll review just about anything you want. Just about. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's go ahead and get on with it. Bronson, directed by Nicolas Winding Refn, a sort of controversial director, but one I really like, with his Pusher series, Valhalla Rising, Drive, and Only God Forgives his films, I actually enjoy. He has a certain particular style that is very off-putting to some people, and I will say that he occasionally lets style beat out substance, but he's different and unique. He's doing some things other directors aren't. He was also in Death Stranding as Hartman, and he doesn't like Lars von Trier, which is points for him. He also co-wrote the movie with Norman Brock. Has a very short career in movies, but I've not seen anything he's helped write, but The Mustang looks quite compelling. That will be on my short list. Starring Tom Hardy, one of the best and most consistent modern actors in my opinion. I'm a big fan, from his Bane to his Mad Max. Locke was also quite interesting. His Al Capone, his work in both Peaky Blinders and Taboo. Please, Taboo, come back for a second season. I like the guy. He's good looking. He brings interesting energy to everything he does. And he's a solid hand. Nothing bad to say about him. And Matt King. He was Super Hands from Peep Show. Peep Show is one of my favorite comedies. He's great in it. I'm also doing Peak Show on my Instagram, Demon Peaks. It's a mixture of Twin Peaks and Peep Show. Two mixed results. Release date for this was March 13th, 2009. What came out the same week? Miss March. The Whitest Kids You Know, a sketch comedy team I actually enjoy, did a movie. And much like Kids in the Hall before them, it sucked. Yeah, Hugh Hefner is also a pedophile. Last House on the Left, the remake of a movie that was an homage to a Bergman film without any of the forethought or context. The original was a celebration of violence against women, and is frankly trash. The remake tries to do something different, like cut out all the stuff that made the original worth mentioning at all, and making it sterile and useless remake. That may seem a little contradictory, but this movie didn't need to exist, nor did the original, really. Going over to the plot, we meet the titular Charles Bronson in his usual place, solitary confinement, teetering on the edge of sanity. We then get another staple of Charlie's life, the police having a hard time wrangling the hulking brute. We then learn about his humble upbringings as a violent maniac with a codependent mother, but he's always kept an odd sense of morality even back then. His trouble with the laws start early and never end. He's a conflicted man, unsure of what he wants to be, quick-tempered, with an odd, brooding charm about him. We get interludes, internal monologues where he's performing for an unseen crowd, who alternate between supporting and dismissing Charlie. His life begins to repeat itself. Prison, violence, solitary, parole, violence, prison. Eventually they put him in a mental institution, unsure of what else to do with him, but he's only further alienated there. He may be crazy, but he's not that level of insane or incompetent. The repeated druggings do little to help with his fragile mental state. He engages in a heroic sort of violence, almost killing a pedophile, before engaging in a prolonged rooftop riot. I believe he did this twice in real life before they certified him sane and send him on his way. While out, he visits his mother, but returns back to his old childhood hometown, getting leagues with his uncle and the menagerie of unusual people that surround him, as well as meeting with an old friend, Paul Daniels, who gets him into some back alley bare-knuckle boxing, which Charlie is a natural at, of course. But it's not long before he's back to his old ways, stealing some jewelry for a girlfriend of his, and he's back in jail not long after. Nothing changes. He takes hostages, ends up in solitary, and is on a short leash in the prison. But he finds some solace in art, including an R. Crumb-style montage using Charlie's art. But even this falls to satiate his inner demons, and he takes his art teacher hostage before ending up back in solitary. Thus, the cycle of his life continues on. Well, that was the rundown of the film. Let's go right into my thoughts. The directing and visuals, the cinematography, are all superb. That's really no surprise. Nicolas has a style that makes him stand out. You can watch any of his films, and you know right off the bat who you're watching. He has this sense of suffocating loneliness in his films. There are these tense, quiet moments where we're almost looking down on the character, mostly the protagonist in a good portion of his films. There's a sense of nihilistic violence in all of his movies, and that isn't any different here. It's got a style all its own. It's less of a biopic and more of a collection of unusual, intense moments in Charlie's life. Though I guess that sort of is what any idea of a biopic is, huh? But this one more so. You may not be a fan of Nicolas's writing or the way he paces his films, but you can't deny his visual understanding of movie storytelling is quite good. The fight choreography is excellent. The violence has a kind of early Guy Ritchie feel, which I really liked. It added to the sleazy British nature of the film. But all the fights are really visceral. They feel intense and horrific. A lot better than most movies, honestly. Charlie gives a lot more than he gives, but when he takes it, he sells it very well. You can see a lot of proto-Bane in this performance by Mr. Hardy, and a lot of that is due to the violence, the fights. Speaking of Tom Hardy, as the only real character in the film, I don't think anyone else gets more than 5 minutes in the movie, frankly. He was excellent. I've seen Charles Bronson talk. I actually read his book, Solitary Fitness, which I used some of those tricks he taught me in that book to this day working out. So I know Charlie's tone, his cadence, and Tom nails it. Not only that, but goddamn does he look impressive. He's well built, not afraid to show himself off with a few naked scenes, and some strange, more artistic parts that explored the nature of Charlie's mind and of his artistic nature in general. Yeah, good job, Tom. It was quite a breeze of a film as well. It felt like not a cohesive film, almost like smaller sketches instead of an ongoing movie that helped break up the fact that we were telling a similar story over and over. It didn't feel its runtime of an hour and a half at all. It was over before I even realized. Let's talk about Charles Bronson a little bit. His real name is Michael Peterson. They do explore that in the movie. He got his name because of the famous actor, tough guy Charles Bronson, you may know from Magnificent Seven, Death Wish, etc., etc. Now, his name wasn't really Charles Bronson either, so that's funny, but in his life, Mac was also known as Charles Salvador, after Salvador Dali, Charles Ali Ahmed, when he converted to Islam for a little bit, for a wife of his, I believe, and I'm sure many more. He was a man who liked to rebrand himself. He's an interesting guy, a strange, charming psychopath, almost with a heart of gold, as he bonded with, I believe, Down syndrome children, and he was also really honest about what was going on in his heart. I don't want to say too many positive things about him, because he was and is a dangerous psychopath, but I recommend anyone to read up on him. He's a lot more interesting than even the movie gives you, and that's no slight. You can only do so much with a film, and they filled an hour and a half with a lot of things that happened in his life. They couldn't do them all. He has a real quote about when they sent him away from the mental institution in real life. "I've been certified mad because of my violence. I was still violent, and now they were certifying me sane. Where's the sanity in that? Isn't the system just as crazy?" So it's safe to say Charles Bronson has a certified certificate that he does not have donkey brains. The soundtrack was awesome. It ranged from classical compositions by Wagner, Verdi, and Strauss, and moved to New Order and the Pet Shop Boys. We got Nicolas's classic love of synthwave. I'm a big fan myself, and all of that combined made me like this film more. A good soundtrack can add so much to a movie. And I was 100% behind this soundtrack here. Fantastic. Overall, I don't think I have much bad to say about this. I really enjoyed this film. It set to tell a little story about a violent criminal, and it told it in a compelling and interesting way. I was already predisposed to enjoy this film, liking the actor, director, and subject matter, so it's safe to say my bias was confirmed going into it. It's kind of a bro film. I do say that. It's definitely a drinking buddy movie. It's something you slap on and, you crack open a cold one or whatever the hell you drink. Well, that was Bronson. Would you like to see me talk about the movies of Charles Bronson, the American actor? Give me some suggestions down below. I'll check out my new Patreon. Exploring for as little as $1. That's just $1. Add me on Instagram under Demon Peaks for daily Twin Peaks memes. Don't forget about the Dark Peaks podcast, my podcast, where I often talk about crack cocaine and am drunk. And finally, subscribe and come back next week. We'll be finishing up Fan Request Month by one Miss Sheena Luthor, who told me to watch I Heart Huckabees. Spoiler, I did not. This has been the Tony Makai, Master of Minds and Men. Thank you very much, and goodbye.